Welcome to Insights. I'm Dick Goldberg, and our topic today, many steps to health and happiness all within a half hour. How can you be healthier? How can you be happier? And with me to talk about that, with this long laundry list of quick tips, with some depth, I hope, behind them, is Dr. Robert McGrath, who's afforded the title of Distinguished Psychologist at the University of Wisconsin. The last 12 years, his work has been focused on health and positive psychology. Thanks for being with us, Bob.
Well, glad to be here.
You know, I had talked to you about doing an interview on happiness, and you said, no, we got to look at health and happiness, health and thriving. Why do you integrate health along with the subject of happiness?
Well, I just think if you don't take care of your body first, I'm sort of what's called a biopsychosocial, cultural-oriented psychologist, and the bio's at the front. The first thing is bio, taking care of your body. You know, if you trash your body in certain ways, it's like it makes it harder to be happy. You're just not going to feel good. It's going to have an effect on your mood, your energy level. You know, in terms of going off to do fun things, You're not going to have the energy because your body's saying, I'm better sit here.
So you would bet if you look at unhealthy people, they're unhappier than healthy people.
Yes.
But you can be healthy and unhappy.
Yes.
You just increase your odds of being happy.
Yes, you increase the odds.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the health stuff first, which is important, but maybe not as exciting as some of the happiness stuff to some people. So why don't we begin with what you think are the most important, simple things to do to be healthy?
Okay, well, the first thing I think is, like, be careful about what you put in your body.
Okay.
And it's important to get good stuff in your body, including water. And, most people are dehydrated. They're walking around, they don't drink enough liquid, or the liquid they're drinking. Our nutritionists love to point out, how bad soda is, and a lot of people think, diet soda is better, but it's not. It actually is worse.
Worse than regular soda?
Worse than regular soda, in that it still increases that sugar craving. You think, the soda didn't have calories, and then it's like, but it's increasing a sugar craving. So it's like, oops, more sugar goes in the system.
Does it increase the craving for sugar more than regular Coke would? Or does it Diet Coke, or is it about the same?
It's about the same.
Okay, well, then why don't do it? Because then you'll be lighter. Your weight won't be as heavy.
No, because there's a little internal justification of like, I didn't have the 160 calories from the Coke, so I can have that much more.
So people might eat other calories.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you about weight. How much does it affect your happiness if you're 30 or 40 pounds overweight?
Well, I think it affects it in that all the things you can't do. Because you're just slower, you can't get out and mobilize. The idea of taking a nice 45-minute walk in the
that makes sense.
In a nature sense is like, no. So it just gets people on a spiral toward being less active, and doing less, sometimes a meaningful activity. You're moving, and you have to.
Yeah. And if you, let's say you drink Diet Coke all day and no water, is that gonna affect your attitude, your energy, your feelings?
I personally, I don't know that there's any great study on that, but I think that it's just correlated, whether it causes that or whether it's just correlated in the sense of, like, people that do that are not doing other things that are taking care of themselves.
So drink a lot of water. Stay away from the pop and the diet soda.
Yeah.
Next.
As well as, looking at that caffeine thing. That the caffeine, a little, and some of these things, the right dose of caffeine is actually positive, but too much of it, and particularly you get down people having their 7th and 8th cup of coffee in the evening, and in fact, we're going to talk about sleep, the importance of sleep in a little bit, but that's going to interfere with sleep. It's the same thing.
What's the right amount of caffeine? How many cups?
1 or 2 cups earlier in the day,
and
nothing
that's positive.
After 3 o'clock. Yeah.
Nothing after 3 because it affects sleep. But and what's good about 1 or 2 cups of coffee?
Well, just that it. Get your coffee specialist in here.
But it seems to have a positive effect.
Yes, it has a positive. It's nutritional, or whether it's just sort of gives that little bit of energy.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Your next health item?
Well, just the same thing. Alcohol. There's some research that says the right dose of alcohol, 1 or 2 drinks, is not only okay, but actually has some positive benefits. But it's doing the 7 or 8 or 9 that's not so positive.
You know, Richard Davis, who's a famous researcher in the area of meditation and the brain, I heard him recently talking about alcohol, and he said he gave it up. He said the benefits are small to your heart and whatever for having a glass of wine a day. But he said every drop of liquor affects your brain in a negative way. And so as a result, he's given it up. So research is moving the other way on this. Drink or two a day is good for you.
Well, there's probably always going to be some competitive, because the stuff saying it's positive has been in the last few years too.
Okay.
So there's both.
Inconclusive, but we know like 6 drinks a day is not good for you.
Yes, that's clearly.
Okay.
Stay away from that.
Okay.
So what should you be putting in there instead of all this, alcohol or coffee or other stuff? Get good old, and it's so easy, good old fruits and veggies. Like most people need to really look at, are they eating enough fruits and vegetables? The Michael Pollan, the person who's become sort of famous for his books on nutrition and so on, it boils down to a few basic things. Eat more fruits and vegetables.
Okay.
Eat things that grow. And, one of his little guidelines is don't put stuff in your body that has, look at the list of ingredients. If it's got more than 3 or 4 ingredients, let it go. Because, just think, and I encourage you to look at what your the ingredient list.
What's the problem? Let's say it's got 15 ingredients. So what?
Well,
a lot of ingredients is good. A lot of stuff.
Yes. Nope. Because there ain't good stuff. Sorry. Those things that tend to be in there are. Let me read a little list of some things for you.
Okay.
Okay. For example, one of the most popular food items, unfortunately, good old Oreo cookies. And what are the ingredients? Sugar, first ingredient, enriched flour, which means white flour that doesn't have any nutritional benefit. Oil, high fructose corn syrup, which is another form of sweetener. Cornstarch, baking soda, salt, emulsifiers, vanilla, and chocolate. Down at the bottom. So you got all these ingredients. Were there any ingredients in there that had a nutritional benefit? And the answer is So people are, I think, in addition to the having 3 ingredients, look to see what all those other things are: cornstarch, baking soda, salt, and then usually if you look at it, you'll see a bunch of letters and numbers and so on. It's like, what is that? That's an ingredient, or what substance am I putting in my body? And we're sort of I think we need to be a touch cautious about what is it you're putting in your body. If it's just a bunch of numbers, I think that may not be the best thing. So,
do you think you can discourage people's behavior, Bob? Do you think people will, say, I'm not going to have that candy bar because, doesn't have good stuff, or...
I can't, but I think they can. If people start paying attention to what they're putting in their body.
Well, tell us why it's so terrible. What's going to happen to them if they eat a TV dinner that has 13 ingredients but low calories compared to what they might get at a restaurant?
For one, it does affect mood, and it affects your weight, and it affects your energy level. It's across the board. Is that I want to put something junk in here. It's like you put junk in your car. If you have a good car and you put a bunch of junk in it, is it going to run very well?
Okay, let's go to lean cuisine TV dinners. Okay, they're low calorie, they taste good. So you're not going to get fat eating them. You're going to it's a good weight control measure. You might have a 300 calorie dinner. It's a lot of tasty stuff. But if you look at the ingredients, it might have like 15 or 20. Yeah. So what's the downside?
Take your pick. If you want to eat junk, eat junk. I try not to be a negative, here, but it's like, so that's your way. And instead of taking a few minutes of your day to create, and it takes less time to cut an apple versus nuke. I mean, a lot of people don't even really discourage the whole notion of microwaving. It's like, the stuff you're processing, the way you're processing food. Just a natural meal. Just think and enjoy. Whether it be as simple as having an apple and an orange and some carrots.
That sounds so boring, Bob. Let me
taste them. I encourage you, and I encourage the people listening here, to go out and take a bite of an apple, a good apple, and enjoy it, and to eat it mindfully. One of the things we'll talk maybe later about is how people are multitasking, so that when they're having their lunch, they're in front of a computer with a radio on. They're doing 2 or 3 things. Eating the apple or the banana is sort of secondary, so they're not really even paying attention to what it tastes like.
Okay, if you go to a movie and you're sitting down to watch the movie, and you've got a couple apples with you, it'd be annoying to people around you, but if you don't care about that, or a bag of M&Ms or something, which is more fun?
In the long run, or even in the moment, that apple's going to be a lot better. If you really taste, and most people don't, they just, and you mentioned the theater, and they sell these huge bags of popcorn. I encourage you, before you do, to get the ingredient list on that popcorn. Popcorn itself almost qualifies as health food, except that's popped corn, not popcorn and 18 forms of variations of fat and so on, and the amount. And those huge bags, and people are just munching on it through the whole thing while they're sitting.
My guilt is growing as we talk.
Sorry to be negative. I mean, I don't want to be negative. I want to encourage people. It's like, concentrate on the movie, and before you even go to the movie, think, is this a good way, or are there other things I could be doing with my time?
Okay.
Everyone, there's a notion that people don't have enough time. And it's like, driving to the movie and sitting for a couple hours. There's probably plenty of movies that are worth that, but there's plenty that that aren't.
Well, that gets to a deeper question. Why do you think people are spending so much time watching movies or television if it's not all worthwhile?
Yeah. I think there's this, I think we have a natural inclination to want to enjoy things. I encourage people to actually look at what they're doing in terms of enjoyment, and does it also have meaning? And so you want the combination of meaning and enjoyment, pleasure, is what you.
Well, I want to get to. So let's. Okay. I'd like to get through this health issues, and we'll get right to that.
We can wrap up with health. One of the flip side in terms of what putting in your body, but what you're doing with your body, increasing physical activity. There's more and more data coming out now about. It doesn't have to be a long run. Just a 20-minute walk. Moving is so important. And it makes so much sense. Our bodies were mobilized. From evolutionarily, our bodies weren't designed to sit. They were designed to move. And
is this true at any age, whether you're 20 or 70?
Yes, or 100. There was recently a fellow 100-year-old that did a marathon. Okay. So you have to give him,
How long a marathon?
26.2 miles.
No.
Yes, he did a marathon.
He finished?
Yes.
I assume he was last. But he finished.
I believe he was last.
Is there any time by which you have to finish or you don't finish?
I think they usually it's 7.5 or 8 hours.
And so he did it.
Yes. But,
wow.
And I think they gave him maybe a little extension.
Oh.
So it's not like, but still, the fact that he moved for 26 miles at age 100, you've got to give him a major pat on the back.
What's the negative if you sit at a desk and you don't do any of this stuff? What happens?
Well, again, I think for one of the things that really they're seeing more of, that exercise increases brain power. It's like, what? That basically you're getting your blood flowing. And your heart is moving, and it gets blood up into that brain. That if you're just sitting there, that heart has a little more difficulty getting that blood up into the brain.
So if you don't, you become kind of a slug. Yeah. Okay. Why don't we move now to the subject you brought up a minute ago, meaning and pleasure. And you're saying don't go to too many movies just to go to movies, and don't watch too much TV just to watch TV, because?
Well, it's, the authentic happiness folks studied what they really look at is that combination. If you just do things for pleasure, and one of the things that comes out a lot about this is like people, working for money. It's like, does all the money in the world make people happy? What do you think?
I've studied that, and what most of the stuff I've read says is if you're poor, that doesn't help. When you go from poor to middle class, huge difference in happiness. Once you're at middle class and keep going richer and richer and richer, very small increments of happiness, minuscule. Do you agree with that, or is that what you found?
That's what I found, and it's what the middle class, and it's surprising that the figures I've seen, it's pretty low. That you don't need that much money in order to live a happy lifestyle. And that the more money actually becomes, it's a stressor, and it becomes a competitive thing. So-and-so's making this much, I need to make this much. And so rather than just using the money for enjoyment even, it's like it becomes a marker, a personal marker, which is a very,
Well, if you could make 3 times the money you make, wouldn't you like to?
It would make no difference.
No difference.
What would I do different?
I don't know, Bob.
Yes. What would most people do differently if they made? And again, it depends on how much. If you're making $20,000 only, and you make 3 times that, you're probably things will be that much easier for you,
right,
and so on. But if you're making $60,000, $180,000, I think data would not indicate that there's that much more enjoyment and so on, or less stress.
Actually, I think I read that the Forbes 400 there's a tiny increment of happiness over middle class people, but that there's a high, not high, but I don't know how they knew this. 37% of people suffer from depression in the Forbes 400 richest people. That's old data. But however, if you win the lottery, doesn't that make people happy?
Yes. For how long?
You tell us.
1 year.
1 year.
And then it's big drop.
Why
and
is
even
that?
in that year, there's so much stress from it all. Yeah. Why is that? Because money doesn't provide happiness. Value and meaning, does.
Okay, and that's what you
meaning
brought
in your
up.
life. And if you turn that money into meaning, and one of the things that's really, I think, a great little study that they've done a number of times now is giving people like a donation, $50, and to say, do with it what you want. And the people that use it for charity and give it away, their happiness boosts, and the ones that just so buy, something you can buy for $50 flat as can be. So there's benefit to giving. And so if you got all this money, go ahead and give it away.
It's interesting. I've recently studied data on how much do Americans give away. Mm-hmm. The average American gives away about 2% of their gross income. And that's pretty level for all income levels. Mm-hmm. Zillionaires to middle-class people give away about 2%. So you think if we gave away 10%, we'd be happier?
I suspect, yeah.
Really? And what is it that is so emotionally rewarding about
it's
that?
It's just a sense of giving, and it's like, and more, it's like, maybe to be negative, it's like, and what did you need all that money for? And one of the things I really, and it's, focused within here a little bit, is simple living. It's like, wait a minute, do we need to live in this complex of manner in which we've all sort of become accustomed to? Do you need all that money? Do you need, people that are obsessed with, and the whole internet thing has really fed into this. You got people internet addicted, and not only are they on the internet all the time, what are they doing on it? Well, they're buying things. Mm-hmm. So buying clothes, and you see people, go into someone's closet and seeing thousands of outfits. Uh-huh. Do they get a chance to wear those? Do they give them pleasure to wear that dress or that suit once every 1.5 years? So
is shopping, people who like to shop, that's a shallow, unrewarding activity?
And I think and I encourage people to go ahead and make a little list of their activities. How are they spending their time? And then the second category, how much pleasure it gives. Third category, meaning. And what they're going to find is the combination of pleasure and meaning is going to boost their enjoyment. If it's pleasurable only, it's just hard. You need to do that more and more and more and more. And it's sort of like the thing of the food. Back to the food. Some people get into eating and eating and eating, and so it's like, oh, is that pleasurable? It's like the first 4 or 5 bites were, and then they just keep doing more and more and more. And it's like, was the 50th and 60th, that 30th Oreo cookie, was that pleasurable? No. Those first 3 were, maybe. So go for those first 3.
Why do people keep doing it then? Why do they keep
Because there's some sense of, it's almost an addictive, like more, if those first 3 were good, I want more and more and more and more. And so it's the same thing whether it's with money.
With shopping?
And shopping. Okay. Boom. The more, the merrier.
Okay, what you're describing to me is empty souls who are trying to fill themselves up because they don't know what else to do with shopping, with eating. Am I hearing that right?
Well, not a term I would use, but I think you're right. Though they're looking for that pleasure, but because it doesn't have meaning, it sort of keeps them on the empty side, so that they need to keep filling.
Would you define empty?
Well, I think that was the term you used, so I'll toss it back to you. So it's not my term.
I think a sense of meaninglessness, a sense of not having much purpose or integration. It's a hard thing to define. Mm-hmm. I threw it out not knowing exactly what I meant by it. But what you're suggesting is really interesting. How to make sure what you do isn't just pleasure, but meaningful, i.e., ultimate happiness is coming from doing meaningful things, not just seeking pleasure, you're saying.
and and they can be combined. So you can have pleasure and meaning together, and so you just don't. The more straight pleasure, that's going to be, for one, less pleasurable, and two, it's just not going to add much to your sense of value in your own life.
And feeling good about yourself, I suppose. Well, what's an example of converting then from a life of pleasure to a life of meaning? How does one go about that?
Well, I think, like anything, it's one of those, either you have a wake-up call and just go, maybe I should change this, and do it on a gradual, or some people, boom, they click and they go, I'm going to change my life. And
how?
Well,
where do you begin?
Okay, well, by doing things that are on the more meaningful side. I can go on for a good long time about how to savor life's joys, but part of them is friends, relationships. They're right up there.
Well, what if you're just with your girlfriends all the time? Mm-hmm. Is that the same kind of thing as eating all the time or shopping all the time?
That can be, right? If it's nothing but let's go have a good time, let's go have a drink, let's go have sex,
right?
Very, very frequently, or whatever it might be. If it's shallow, it's going to be shallow. But it's like, one of the things we really encourage is, getting out and giving, and volunteering work.
Can we back up to relationships? How can we go from a relationship that's shallow?
Well, that's what I was saying. But it's like going out and volunteering at something together.
Oh,
doing
together.
Things
I'm sorry.
Together. Having meaningful conversations, or getting back to, we didn't really have a chance too much to talk about enhancing your bioenergy by being active in nature.
Before we get to that, I want to flush out this idea of how do you have meaningful relationships. Let us say you have friends, and with them you do activities, play golf, play cards. Is that enough to have a meaningful relationship? The activities that you do with them.
Well, it would probably fall into that. You'd want to look again. Is it meaningful? Is it pleasurable or meaningful? So playing cards and having just some good laughs, and we could talk about humor too.
Yeah,
good laughs are hard to beat, and so if you're playing cards, but mostly having good laughs, but it's engaging somewhat in terms of you're concentrating on the cards and having some good conversation and feeling close to a person. Great, that sounds great to me.
Okay, if you're feeling close, but let's say it's just parallel play. You're with someone. You're not talking about your feelings. You're not having great laughs. You're just kind of hanging out.
Yeah.
I guess I'm trying to get to what's the essence of meaningful relationships versus superficial relationships.
Yeah. That's a great question. It's having some value in them, and I don't know that I've got a great answer for you. That would be how to make sure that they're meaningful. Mm-hmm. I think that's a value judgment, but it's not just frittering time away, but doing things again that on your little list that I encourage everyone to be keeping of their activities and the pleasure and the meaningful side of it. It's like, well, you give it your own meaning. I mean, I don't know that there's this definition that you can say, oh, was this meaningful or not? If it feels meaningful and it feels like it's giving some value to your life, is being a great card player, does that give you meaning and value? It might for some, because it's the value is you're using your brain in a certain way.
Yeah.
But my guess is that people that are doing other things that there might be more consensus that this is meaningful to go, to do some volunteer work.
Now, if we go through your list of other things to have a fulfilled life or be happier, maybe that would make you be a person that could bring more to a relationship, so that the relationship would be richer.
Yes.
So why don't we go to those, to the next ones?
All right. Well, and some of them are, one thing that's, I think, valuable, and gratitude. Being grateful for and appreciative. And when part of the focus is, you go through your day, it's like, and especially when you're multitasking and you're listening to the computer and you're on your cell phone at the same time and not chatting with your friends, but you're going to miss many things. And just sort of taking time at the end of the day and they really Bob Emmons started this promoting just keeping a gratitude journal. And just appreciating, taking a moment, and it doesn't have to be the end of the day. That's a convenient time. Do it 4 or 5 times a day. Just take a moment and go. Take a deep breath and think, what am I appreciative of? And it's been beautiful lately. It's like it doesn't have to be anything profound, and although I think beauty is profound, appreciating the beauty of a day, or walking by and seeing a certain beauty of a tree or a plant. Or the complexity of a building you're walking by. So there's a range of things that you can, appreciate. And, just a nice conversation with someone, a nice meal, whatever it might be, but to note those and so on. And one of the things I really encourage is expressing your gratitude. And this is something that a lot of people have a little hesitation about, but writing a letter to someone, a friend, a family member, someone that you appreciate. And they sort of encourage making it very elaborate to set up a time to meet with them and read them the letter.
Come on.
I just encourage, just send that nice letter of thanks.
Do you do that?
I sometimes will send, and actually they're very informal, thank you notes,
But do you ever write a letter to someone saying, I just want you to know you really added a lot to my life, and you're a this, and you're a that, and you're a good person, blah, blah, blah. You ever do something like that?
I've done it a few times, yes.
You have?
Yes.
And what do you get out of that?
It's the giving. And it's not, you don't get it back necessarily. I mean, I think you do, but it's like there's not anyone I've ever known that didn't express incredible appreciation to getting a letter like that.
Yes.
But sending it, it's like, it's your giving of yourself, and,
Well, why is that good? What does that do for you?
Well, try it. I can't quantify it for you. Your homework for the week is to send a gratitude letter or take it to someone. You can experiment with Bob Emmons' theory and find out whether, in fact, that feels as good as it. It's like, oh, that seems like trouble, or it seems like, are they going to appreciate it? But I encourage you, and anyone who might be listening, to do that.
Okay, so the link between just being grateful for so many things in your life, small or big, and letting people know you're grateful for them makes you happier?
Yes. As well as a number of other, it's like the data about the effects, it increases happiness, reduces depression significantly. People that do great gratitude stuff, they start exercising more. It's like, how's that related?
No kidding.
It's not related, but it happens. And for college students, their grades go up. It's like, wait a minute, and whether that's related to the depressed moods are dropped, and
so it makes you. It's kind of a counter to depression to use gratitude. All the things you have to be grateful for in life.
Yes.
Does it relate to optimism?
I think it does. Yeah, and that's on the list that some of the positive psychologists list. Being optimistic is certainly right up there as things you want to try and do.
How do you do that?
I guess there's always a choice of which are you going to focus on. What could go wrong, what could go right. What did go wrong, and what did, that even in the hardest of times, if you look back and some...
like it could have been a lot worse, no matter what.
It could have been worse, but just looking back, and it's like there's always something that was okay or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And if you think of the okay part, you feel better than if you think about, this is awful.
Yeah. Yes, and this is terrible. And actually, just even thinking about it, sometimes when you look back at old family stuff and so on, one of the other things we like to talk about is humor. It's like you can actually laugh at it. Oh. Instead of, you have your options. This terrible, terrible thing happened. This terrible, terrible thing happened. Mm-hmm. Or you can look at it and sort of, can you imagine that happened?
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine I got sent to my room for this and this and this or whatever?
As a kid, right.
Yeah, as a kid.
Okay, so if your father beat up your mother, how do you make that funny?
Well, that would be, that would push the edge of it.
Yeah, that would be dark, black humor.
Yes. Yes. No, you wouldn't make fun of that. But that you bring up another topic, the importance of forgiveness.
Okay.
Whether it be for you to forgiving your father or your mother forgiving your father for doing that. And the real core thing, and this is a psychologist here at the University of Wisconsin, Bob Enright, and one of his thing, and I probably encourage, instead of using the term forgiveness, letting go. Mm-hmm. It's like continue to focusing on what a terrible thing happened to me. It's just going to keep it. It keeps it right there.
Yeah.
Yes, and so allowing yourself to say, it's over. I'm going to let this go. I'm not saying what you did was okay, but I'm not going to carry this anymore. So,
and what you can do is listen to my podcast with Bob Enright and learn how to forgive.
There you go. Great.
We interviewed him.
Yes.
Okay, well, our time is running short. Is there anything else on the list that you want to throw in, or have we pretty much touched on what for you was the laundry list you wanted of things to
everything from again from laughing to getting out in nature, and you can do those combined. Go out and and have a good laugh while you're walking.
And nature is good for happiness?
Yes, I believe it is, and I think particularly people are spending way too much time indoors.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to be careful about the cancer from the sun and so on. But most people are vitamin D deprived. I think you'll find that they're getting more and more aware of that. So taking a pill of vitamin D is like okay, but being out in the sun half hour a day, that seems
adds
good.
To happiness.
And one of the it's a very small thing, smiling. Have yourself a smile. And
can anyone do? What if you're a glum person? How do you smile? Just force
the same way, the same way as another person smiles, and it reduces glumness. And it actually some of the effects are striking about how can a smile make that much difference. But it boosts mood. It actually gets your brain working a little better. So I encourage smile, have a good laugh.
Well, smilingly, I bring this interview to a close. And Bob McGrath, I thank you very much for sharing all these ideas. And let's hope people who listen put some of them to effect. And I hope you'll join us on the next edition of Insights.